questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
We all know that the Liberal carbon tax is not an environment plan. It's a tax plan that takes money from Canadians and accomplishes nothing for the environment. It's no surprise then that Canadians have found out the Liberals have been misleading them about the amount of the so-called rebate. It's been confirmed. Canadians are getting about a third less than promised. Just like the Prime Minister, the rebate is not as advertised. What else is the Prime Minister misleading Canadians about when it comes to his useless, ineffective carbon tax?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to climate change, Conservatives have no plan whatsoever. We have a plan in place, and that plan is working. It is reducing pollution, it is reducing emissions, and it's also keeping affordability in mind by giving 8 out of 10 families more money that remains with them to make choices they can use to reduce their consumption. Mr. Speaker, we are proud of the plan that we have put in place.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Well, that's just not true, Mr. Speaker. In fact, according to their own numbers, families are getting about a third less than what the Prime Minister promised. The Liberals spent millions of dollars of taxpayers' dollars on a misleading campaign about the so-called rebate, while at the same time refusing to come clean on how high the carbon tax will actually go. Why won't the Prime Minister just admit his carbon tax scheme will do only one thing, and that's take more money from Canadians to fill his coffers?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Once again, based on the independent analysis that was done by the Parliamentary Budget Office, 8 out of 10 families are better off under our plan because they get more money in an incentive than they pay on a price on pollution. But it's interesting, Mr. Speaker, it has been more than 400 days, actually 407 days to be exact, that they promised to introduce a climate change plan, which they have not yet. Because they have no plan, because they don't care about the environment, because they don't care.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader. Order.
Well, it's quite humorous to watch, Mr. Speaker, because the Liberals actually believe that if you repeat a talking point and if you say it louder, even if it's not true, that Canadians will totally believe it. It's now confirmed, however, that despite repeating it and saying it louder, Liberal claims about the carbon tax plan are simply not true. It's not an environment plan. It is a greedy Liberal tax grab. Why don't they just admit it? Given the chance, they're going to increase the tax on Canadians and keep hosing them all the way to the bank.
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, once again, let me share some facts with the honourable member. The 97% of the eligible Canadians who were eligible to get the rebate has actually got a rebate.
That's right.
And 8 out of 10 of those are better off under our plan than they pay in a price on pollution. Mr. Speaker, it's very interesting that the official opposition talks a good talk but have no plan when it comes to making life affordable for Canadians, but also taking action on climate change to ensure our communities are resilient.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, here is the Liberals' record. 4 budgets, 4 years of mismanaging Canadians' money, and 4 years of deficits. And who pays for this? Well, our children and our grandchildren will, and so will Canadian workers who are working hard for their money and who now have to pay more in taxes than they did 4 years ago. Mr. Speaker, will the Liberals finally understand that you don't create wealth by increasing taxes on ordinary people and creating deficits? Honourable Minister of Justice. After 10 years of weak growth, the Canadian economy has rebounded, and we now have one of the strongest economies in the G7. Our economy created over 1 million jobs since 2015, Mr. Speaker. Unemployment is at the lowest level in 40 years. Mr. Speaker, our governance of the economy is excellent. We are getting rid of all the problems that the Conservatives created over 10 years, and we will continue in the right direction. The Honourable Member for Richmond Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that for the last 4 years under this Liberal government, the cost of living has only gone up. Canadians are paying an average of $800 more per year since the Liberals came to power. And the government even cancelled the tax credit for users of public transit and for children who had sports and cultural activities to attend. Will this government stop taking more and more money from the pockets of Canadian taxpayers? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, the premise of my opponent's question is completely false. A 4-person family from the middle class gets an average of $2,000 more every year thanks to the Canada Child Benefit. Mr. Speaker, the debt to GDP ratio is clearly going down. We are in control of our finances, Mr. Speaker, and the former government was not able to do that for 10 years.
For Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals like to say nice things about the economy, but the reality is that people are finding it harder and harder to make ends meet. It's increasingly difficult to find affordable housing. It's increasingly difficult to pay your cell phone bill. And surveys show that half of Canadians are only $200 away from a financial crisis in their own lives. When will the Liberals understand that people deserve better than that? The Honourable Minister for Social Development. Mr. Speaker, the Canadians who are benefiting from our benefits is really exceptional. 8 out of 10 are benefiting from the climate initiative. 9 out of 10 Canadians are benefiting from the CCB, which is making a major difference in their lives. It's $559 tax-free per month. We've made investments in housing and childcare because in 2019 we need all Canadians to participate in the economy. It's good for the economy, but it's also good for reducing poverty. And we've reduced poverty by over 20%.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians rely on having good access to cellular services when they go to work, when they go to school, when they're at home, and in between. But the reality is they're anxious about how much this bill costs them. Yep. At the same time, big telecom companies have made $7.5 billion in profits, and they receive millions in handouts from this government. Now, we New Democrats believe we need to make life more affordable for Canadians. That's why we're putting a cap on cell phone bills. Will the Liberals finally stand up to telephone companies, to telecom companies, and protect Canadians instead of those big friends?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
We've been taking a number of steps to support affordability, competition, consumer interest, and innovation in telecommunications. And we've seen some encouraging steps in the right direction. Prices are up to 32% lower in regions with more competition, and there are now low-cost data plans, and we know that we still have more work to do. And that's why, for example, we've issued a policy directive to the CRTC which states that consumer interests must be considered when making decisions, and why we've directed the CRTC to investigate high-pressure sales tactics. We're going to continue to take action to ensure that Canadians can access good quality telecommunications.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Mr. Speaker, what's clear is whose side the Liberals are on. With KPMG, they sided on the side of KPMG and tax avoidance. They sided with drug companies over people, and they let the big telecom companies have their profits rise to $7.5 billion. Now everybody, teachers, small businesses, families, students, everybody needs access to the internet. But the reality is it costs too much and they don't have the access they need. The NDP would end data caps and ensure that everyone has access to affordable, unlimited data plans. Why do the Liberals continue to choose the profits of these companies over people?
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, today I was planning on talking about tax evasion all day in the House, but at the last minute the NDP did what their leader likes to do and change ideas at the last minute. Now, tax evasion apparently for the NDP is only an issue if it makes the headlines, but on this side of the House, we take the fight against tax evasion very seriously. Canadians deserve a fair, transparent, and impartial tax system, and that's what we're going to deliver. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South. Mr. Speaker, cell service is essential for ordinary people in their daily lives. But the reality is, it's too expensive. At the same time, big telecom companies are earning billions in profits at the expense of Canadians. The NDP has the courage to act and to reduce costs for ordinary Canadians. Will the Liberals vote with us to defend the interests of ordinary Canadians, or will they continue to protect their friends in the telecoms? The Honourable Minister of Employment. Mr. Speaker, from day one, our government has been taking steps to improve the quality, accessibility, and affordability of telecommunications services. We place the interests of consumers at the heart of everything we do. I would invite the member to study our work to date more carefully and to recognize that the current government is taking action on behalf of Canadians on this file. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Chaudière-Millefiori. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives had left a $7.5 billion cumulative surplus for the 2015-16 financial year. The Liberals are irresponsibly burying Canadians under a mountain of debt that they'll leave to future generations. They had promised to balance the budget by 2019, but that promise was broken, and like many other promises as well. When will the Liberals present a plan to balance the budget? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
What's irresponsible is the Conservatives constantly misleading this House and Canadians about their economic record. The numbers don't lie. And frankly, it was 10 years of economic darkness under the Conservatives that saw the lowest growth since the Great Depression. Wages were stagnant. Under our plan, you're seeing 1 million jobs created. Actually, Mr. Speaker, over 1 million jobs have been created under our plan. The lowest unemployment rates created in recorded history. We will never take lessons from the failed Conservatives.
Order. The Honourable Member. The Honourable Member for Chaudière-Millefiori. Taxes on the middle class have increased by $800 per family. According to the accounting firm MNP, nearly half of Canadians are only $200 or less away from bankruptcy. Canadians can't afford higher taxes to pay for Liberal deficits. Everyone knows that they're going to have to raise taxes. When will the Minister of Finance admit that that's the case? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Well, Mr. Speaker, for the benefit of those watching at home, I think we should be clear. According to the OECD, which is an impartial organization, I know that the Conservatives don't like international organizations, but they published a report saying that the average Canadian family has $2,000 more than they had under the former government. And that, Mr. Speaker, is the result of progressive policies like the CCB. Another thing, when he talks about the question, or rather about the debt, you have to know that in the history of Canada, 72% of the government of the debt that's ever existed has been accumulated by Conservatives. So we have no lessons to take from them.
Honourable Member for Carleton.
Well, this government sent out little leaflets promising tiny rebate checks just before the election to offset the cost of the carbon tax that would come largely after the election. But now we find out that those leaflets were not as advertised. In Ontario, for example, a family will receive a third less than the government promised in its taxpayer-funded advertising. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, Canadians will pay more and get ultimately nothing in return. Why won't they admit that the carbon tax is not as advertised?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Contrary, Mr. Speaker, the Climate Action Incentive is precisely as advertised. I've been telling the Honourable Member for months in this chamber that a typical family of four in the province that he represents will receive an incentive of $307. That remains the case today. The numbers he's citing are based on demographics that represent families smaller than a typical family of four. This is not rocket science. It is simple arithmetic. If the Honourable Member would actually read our platform and our commitment, he would understand that I'm telling the truth.
Honourable member for Carleton. Order.
But in reality, nothing that they write for others to read can be believed. If you looked at the little leaflet, you would think you were getting over $300. In fact, you're getting significantly less and not enough to compensate for the higher gas, grocery, heating bills that you will have to pay in the province of Ontario and the other provinces in which this high tax applies. Worse, the tax is expected to rise 250% if the government is re-elected, God forbid. Why won't they admit that this carbon tax scheme is not as advertised?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, previously in this chamber, I have invited the honourable member to read the Pan-Canadian Framework on Climate Change. I've invited him to look at our website. I've told him where to find the details of our plan. Mr. Speaker, you can lead a horse to water. You can't make him drink. But I've got one final invitation for the member. The Parliamentary Budget Officer actually produced a report that demonstrated 8 out of 10 Canadian families would be better off as a result of our plan. I'd extend the one final invitation. If he can't track a copy down for himself, I'll provide it to him. But I look forward to seeing this member in the next campaign go door to door with a promise to take money from his constituents.
Honourable member for Carleton.
Well, I invite him to campaign in the next election on making gas prices, home heating prices, and grocery prices thousands of dollars more expensive for families in his riding. Now, the reality is that the out-of-control, promise-breaking deficits of this government will lead to higher taxes down the road. There's no question. Canadians are already paying $800 per family more in income tax than when this government took office, but the worst is yet to come. Why won't they admit that if they're re-elected, they will take more from Canadians when they no longer need voters' votes, but still need their money?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the worst already came. It was the 10 years of the Harper Conservative government. But thankfully, our plan has been focused on Canadians. And a typical Canadian family is actually $2,000 better off. The Conservatives don't want to base their questions in facts. They want to scare Canadians because they know they can't run on their record. On the other hand, we can, because we're focused on Canadians. We have one of the best economies in the G7. We're focused on making life more affordable. Conservatives focus on power, helping their wealthy friends, and policies like Doug.
I ask colleagues to try to hear things, even those I don't like, without having to blurt out things themselves when it isn't their turn. The honourable member for Carleton.
We are proud to run on a record of 1 million net new jobs right in the middle of the great global recession. We had the biggest drop in poverty, one that was remarked on by UNICEF, and the largest increase in middle-class incomes of any government in 40 years. Balanced budget while lowering taxes. By contrast, they have broken their promise to balance the budget this year, and their out-of-control spending will lead to higher taxes. Why don't they do the honourable thing and admit that before the election rather than keeping it hidden from Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, again, we'll take no lessons from the Conservatives in how to be honest with Canadians. When we're focused on Canadians, we know that we need to create an economy that works for everyone. That's why we lower taxes on the middle class. We stopped sending checks to millionaires like the Conservatives did. We made sure that Canada Child Benefit checks were tax-free. And we are investing in Canadians, and because of those investments, we've created over 1 million new jobs. Mr. Speaker, I can't say it enough. We will not take lessons from the government who added $150 billion to the debt.
Order. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, internet and wireless connectivity is essential. But all too many people don't have these services due to lack of access or high costs. Meanwhile, big telecoms are making billions of dollars in profits, and they're even receiving millions in subsidies from the Liberal government. It's time to stand up to these big companies. Will the government commit to taking steps to make the telecommunications sector more competitive?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, Not only is our government standing up, but it's taking clear action. Over 180 projects worth over $900 million were invested by our government to ensure that communities all across Canada will be connected to the internet and have access to good wireless service. 98% of households will have fiber optic access soon. And the problem is that the NDP voted against that.
Member for Windsor West.
The reality is, Mr. Speaker, this government's letting the CRTC have the speeds and services on rural and remote communities, creating a second-class citizenship experience that's going to be evolving in our country. In fact, Mr. Speaker, they've endorsed that policy even last week at the committee where they could have challenged the CRTC. Instead, their policy is to give an integrity system even more life and making sure that we're going to have two sets, one for the communities of urban and one for rural. They're actually institutionalizing this, Mr. Speaker. But the Liberals stop apologizing and actually put in equal service for all.
The Honourable Minister of Rural Economic Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, all Canadians need access to high-speed internet as well as mobile wireless networks, and our government has taken a number of steps to support affordability, competition, consumer interests, and innovation in telecommunications. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, we've issued policy directives to the CRTC to state that consumer interests must be considered when making decisions, and we're directing the CRTC to investigate high-pressure sales tactics. Mr. Speaker, we know that rural Canadians and all Canadians deserve access to high-speed, affordable, quality broadband and cell phone coverage, and that's what we're making sure is going to happen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have failed on Trans Mountain from the very beginning. If the Prime Minister really supported this project, it would have proceeded as first proposed and construction would be done by the end of this year. Instead, the Prime Minister's failures have forced taxpayers to purchase Trans Mountain, and now they're on the hook for all of the additional delays. Next week, the Liberals will make another announcement about approvals, but the real question is, when will this pipeline get built in Burnaby?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member and his party are really serious about this project moving forward in the right way, they would not have voted down to kill a process that we have put in place. That's right. We are moving forward with meaningful consultation with Indigenous communities. We know that a project such as this or any energy projects to move forward, we need to get the process right, which proper involvement of Indigenous communities as well as taking action on environmental sustainability, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Foothills.
Mr. Speaker, experts agree the Liberals aren't getting it right. Their tanker ban and their No More Pipelines Bill C-69 are sinking Canada's energy industry. And the Liberals' energy ineptitude is continuing with these delays to the Trans Mountain expansion. Now, the Liberals are going to announce next week, once again, approval for this project. But it means absolutely nothing unless there's an actual plan to get it built. Now, the construction season is half over. What is this Prime Minister willing to do to ensure that construction begins in Burnaby this summer?
Hear, hear. Minister of Natural Resources.
Well, Mr. Speaker, first of all, let me correct the honourable member that we have seen one of the largest $40 billion private sector investment in our oil and gas sector in LNG. We have seen $9 billion of investment in Alberta in our petrochemical sector. We have seen Enbridge Line 3 moving forward in our country. We're working hard on Keystone XL pipeline, working with US, and we are moving forward in the right way on the process related to Trans Mountain pipeline expansion.
For Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, 3.5 years ago, the Liberals approved the Trans Mountain expansion the first time. It was supposed to be operating by the end of 2019, in the next 6 months, but their failure to exert federal jurisdiction and their mistakes on consultation have held it up. A year ago, they said spending billions of tax dollars would build it immediately, but not a single inch has been built. Now they are 8 days away from approving it again. So what exactly is the plan to get construction started in Burnaby on June 19th?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to remind Canadians and everyone listening that under Stephen Harper, 99% of the oil that we sold to the outside world went to one single customer, the United States.
Yeah.
That was the case in 2006, and that was the case in 2015 when they left office. For 10 years, they failed to build a single pipeline to get our resources to non-U.S. markets. We understand that in order to move forward on energy projects, we need to get the process right, and that's exactly what we're focused on.
Honourable member for Lakeland.
Conservatives, 4 new major pipelines were approved and built. Not a single one has gone ahead under these Liberals. And the Trans Mountain expansion was supposed to be built by the end of this year. But after taking the longest, costliest, most uncertain approach, the Liberals delayed their second approval by a month. Further delays will cost taxpayers billions more, and the Liberals must tell Canadians the plan to deal with new court challenges, who will build, own, and operate the pipeline, the cost to taxpayers, and when the expansion will be in service. So what is the Prime Minister prepared to do for construction to start in Burnaby on June 19th?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, again, I think if the member opposite and her party and everyone else in the Conservative caucus is really serious about energy sector and really serious about getting pipelines built in this country, they would not have gutted an environmental assessment plan in 2012 that took away Canadians' ability to participate in the process, took away the protection of the environment, of water, fish, and everything else that is important to Indigenous communities and Canadians. We're fixing a broken system so good projects can move forward in a meaningful.
The honourable member for Sherbrooke. Order, please. Mr. Speaker, people are increasingly anxious about the economy and the environment. It's obvious. We've signed trade deals that are bad for workers, and tax systems are more complacent towards big companies. People expect the Liberals to show leadership, but instead of acting, we now own a $15 billion pipeline. The government clearly has a plan, and it's no plan, and it's improvising. The NDP does have one. It'll create 300,000 quality jobs. When will the government show some coherency? The Honourable Minister for the Environment, Parliamentary Secretary, rather.
Have their heart in the right space. However, they often approach policy without thinking through the consequences. I note in particular when it came to their plan for big emitters, the Eco-Fiscal Commission indicated that their plan would actually both hurt the Canadian economy and have no impact to reduce emissions. We're moving forward with a plan that's actually going to protect our environment, grow our economy at the same time, and that may mean get our energy resources to new markets, but doing it in the right way.
Honourable member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Well, Mr. Speaker, climate leaders don't build massive bitumen pipelines. Canadians now are crushed by the worst family debt levels of any industrialized country in history. Nearly half of Canadians are $200 away from not being able to make ends meet in a month. Housing's unaffordable. People can't afford their medication, and instead of helping families, the Liberals continue to put rich corporations first. Why are the Liberals pouring tens of billions of dollars into tax cuts for the richest corporations when Canadian families can't pay their bills?
The Parliamentary Secretary to the Ministry of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, that's simply not true. One of the first things we did was lower taxes on the middle class, which the NDP, in fact, voted against. We then made the Canada Child Benefit more generous, which, again, the NDP voted against. Mr. Speaker, it's hard for Canadians to take the NDP seriously when they took on the Conservatives' economic plan, which they were going to balance the budget at all costs. Meanwhile, we promised Canadians to grow the economy through their investments, and as a result, a typical Canadian family is $2,000 better off. Perhaps the NDP will come up with a different economic plan next.
I remind the honourable member for New Westminster Burnaby that having asked the question, that's the time to stop speaking and to listen to the answer. And the honourable member for Bonavista, Burin, Trinity.
Mr. Speaker, plastic pollution is a global challenge that requires immediate action. Plastic waste ends up in our landfills and incinerators, litters our parks and beaches, and pollutes our rivers, lakes, and oceans, entangling and killing turtles, fish, and marine mammals. Right now, less than 10% of plastic used in Canada gets recycled. We've reached a defining moment and this is a problem we simply cannot afford to ignore. Unlike the Conservatives who have no plan for the environment, our government knows that we need to take action on this issue to protect our oceans, wildlife and planet. Can the Parliamentary Secretary please update this House on the action?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member for his question and as a fellow MP who represents coastal communities for his advocacy to rid our oceans of plastic pollution. We know that plastic pollution is choking our oceans, Mr. Speaker, and putting an undue burden on our marine environment. I was so pleased to see the Prime Minister announce this morning we would be moving forward with a ban on single-use harmful plastic products and implementing extended producer liability. Mr. Speaker, it is the 21st century. It is time we rid our oceans of this pollution once and for all.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, Elections Canada announced that they are going to use social media influencers in the upcoming election. The Chief Electoral Officer agrees that this type of campaign is very politically sensitive, but they refuse to release the names of these 13 influencers. The Prime Minister promised to be open and accountable to Canadians, but won't provide even this basic level of transparency. Will the Prime Minister finally be transparent and reveal the identity of 13 people that have been hired to influence the next election?
Minister of Democratic Institutions.
There is only one party in this House that tries to suppress the vote. They're the Conservative Party of Canada, in fact, Mr. Speaker. When they were in government, they brought in the so-called Fair Elections Act, which actually made it harder for Canadians to vote, Mr. Speaker, and it banned the CEO from Elections Canada from, get this, Mr. Speaker, talking to Canadians about how to vote. Well, Mr. Speaker, thank goodness in 2015 Canadians elected the Liberals because we've actually made it easier for all Canadians to vote, and we've given the CEO of Elections Canada the power and the authority to talk to Canadians about voting. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Levis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, the government amended the Elections Act to impose its vision of the elections process and force Elections Canada to adopt the new trend of hiring social media influencers who are handpicked. Now that these influencers know they've been selected and they'll be paid by Elections Canada, there are doubts as to whether they will remain impartial. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government must ensure greater transparency in the elections process. Can they tell us the names of these phantom influencers? The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives are the only ones who don't want the Canadians to go out and vote. When they were in power, they limited Canadians' rights and the role of Elections Canada to speak to Canadians, to encourage them to get out and vote. Mr. Speaker, we don't have any lessons to take from the Conservatives on this, and we have made sure that Canadians will have the right to vote, and we gave the Elections Canada the responsibility to help Canadians vote. Thank you.
Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, we know the Liberal leader admires China's basic dictatorship. We know the Liberals are forcing Elections Canada to hire social media influencers to influence the election. We know the Liberals chose a partisan union to decide which newspapers get.
But I understand there's a problem with the interpretation when once it's working now. Remember, that's correct. The member should start over. The member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, we know the Liberal leader admires China's basic dictatorship. We know the Liberals are forcing Elections Canada to hire social media influencers to influence the election. We know the Liberals chose a partisan union to decide which newspapers will receive election year subsidies and which won't. And we know these Liberals threaten to shut down Twitter if it doesn't promise to remove what Liberals consider to be inauthentic content. Mr. Speaker, do these Liberals really want to follow China, Iran, and North Korea on Twitter?
The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, it is just as unbecoming of politicians to troll online as it is in the House. Mr. Speaker, that is a wild extrapolation on comments that were made.
Order. I urge members to rely on the public to judge and determine their views on what they see and hear in the House. Order. It's not necessary to always interject. The Honourable Minister has the floor. Order.
Mr. Speaker, that is a wild extrapolation that the Conservatives are making and misleading Canadians. There was a witness at the Grand Committee that talked about suggesting that, and I was talking about Twitter being a better actor when it comes to the declaration of electoral integrity. Mr. Speaker, Conservatives owe it to Canadians to tell the truth and to not mislead them.
Order. The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre will come to order and restrain himself, please. The honourable member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have dithered on developing meaningful measures to prevent foreign and domestic interference in Canada's democratic electoral process. They confected deeply deficient legislation to stack the deck in their favour. Now the minister fears that won't be enough. She's afraid of voices she can't control, so she's threatening to shut down Twitter during the election. Mr. Speaker, again, do the Liberals realize they're walking in the basic footsteps of the Chinese, Iranian, and North Korean dictatorships?
Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions. Order. Order.
Cheermongering.
Mr. Speaker, there is one party in this House that continues to mislead Canadians, and that is the Conservative Party of Canada. Mr. Speaker, there is one party in this House that has consistently been found in violation of elections legislation, Mr. Speaker. There is one party in this House, Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party of Canada, that has had a member of Parliament go to jail for undermining elections legislation. Mr. Speaker, I issued a challenge on Friday to the Conservatives. Will they make 2019 the first time they don't break elections law?
Order. Order. The honourable member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
In April, Liberals announced Canada would finally join other countries to stop slave labor. The supply chain legislation was to be tabled in the Senate, yet the bill mysteriously disappeared. Now the Liberals are sending out surveys to businesses that ask, if the Government of Canada considered supply chain legislation, what should be the focus and scope? We thought this was in the Senate. What's going on here? Does the government understand it's waited too long to pass legislation for this Parliament?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Making sure that we have a commitment to a supply chain that doesn't use slave labor is incredibly important to this government. That's why we've been consulting so closely with all of our partners, international partners, labor partners, business partners. As the member opposite knows, this is not an easy task, but one that we're fully committed to. We continue to have those conversations and look for ways that we can move forward to ensure that everything that we purchase in this country is free of the use of slave labor. Thank you.
The honourable member for Berthier-Maskinongé. Mr. Speaker, the EI system is sexist. Why? Only 35.2% of female workers are eligible for benefits. This government has done nothing to fix this situation. Female workers need a government that is on their side. Mr. Speaker, what will it take for the Liberals to take action and reform this sexist EI program? The Honourable Minister for Social Development. Our EI system is solid and reliable. We want to help the middle class and those working hard to join it. And our system is working. we've been able to reduce poverty, create more jobs, and help the middle class. And we are working on gender balance through helping with maternity leave, parental leave, compassionate leave, and other types of leave, which in 2019 has helped both men and women to participate in the workforce. The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, when we commit to specific targets and we're not even able to realize we're going to miss them, there's a problem, Mr. Speaker. How come the Minister of the Environment tell Canadians, without laughing, that the Liberal government won't meet its Paris targets? This is irresponsible. They're not taking the environment seriously, just like sound management of public funds. Here's a simple question in search of an honest answer. Will Canada, under the Liberals, meet its Paris targets? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the answer is simple. Our government will meet its Paris Agreement targets, and we don't have a choice because failure is not an option. I'm happy to do more than say we'll meet our targets. I'll lay out a few of the ways that we're going to accomplish that, Mr. Speaker. We've put a price on pollution, so it's not free to pollute anywhere in Canada. The Members' Party, as their first act in government, they've committed to repealing this to ensure that it's free to pollute again. Mr. Speaker, by 2030, 90% of the electricity under our government will be generated from non-emitting resources. We've made the largest investment in the history of public transit in Canada. We're investing in energy efficiency, and we are creating good jobs in the green economy of tomorrow.
Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Well, Mr. Speaker, for the first time in Canadian history, the Auditor General has stated publicly that he doesn't have the funds necessary to do his job. The Liberals have consistently rewarded their friends and silenced their critics, and now they're targeting the Auditor General. This Liberal attack on the Auditor General has forced the office to cancel audits that would have been released right before the election. Why do the Liberals think they can get away with silencing the Auditor General?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's great to see the Conservatives finally taking an interest in officers of Parliament in this House. Actually, what they're really doing is reminding Canadians of the fact that they're the one that cut the Auditor General's budget by 10%. And then when our government reinstated the budget for the Auditor General, they voted against that. So, Mr. Speaker, we take the Auditor General's reports to us very seriously. We really respect and appreciate the work that the Auditor General does on behalf of Canadians and all parliamentarians.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this is ridiculous. The Auditor General has never until now come out and said publicly that they cannot do their job for lack of funds. At no time during the previous government did the AG ever say he could not do his job. This is an unprecedented attack on our democracy. When will the Liberals give the Auditor General the funds that he needs to do his job and hold this government to account?
Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative member opposite probably understands that so far over 70% of the Auditor General's reports have been based on failed Conservative policies. I know we're coming through that era. I have confidence in the Auditor General and his work, but this is just another officer that the Conservatives don't respect. Canadians remember when they told the parliamentary budget officer they would not allow him to audit their platform. Why? What do they have to hide in their platform? The lack of a climate plan?
The Honourable Member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, 4 years ago, I ran as a member of the Liberal Party to defend our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and among those rights, a woman's right to choose. Last week, 8,000 women from across the world came to Vancouver to promote, defend, and extend women's rights for all. Canada is a leader in women's rights, Mr. Speaker. Can the Minister of Women and Gender Equality tell this House how Canadians can count on this Liberal government to advance gender equality?
Honourable Minister.
Sadly, the attack on women's rights is very much a domestic issue fostered by Conservative politicians in this House. By refusing to support a woman's right to choose, by pledging to cut abortion services, by voting to cut funding for organizations that work to prevent violence that is costing a Canadian woman her life every 60 hours. Canadians deserve deserve a government that is working to advance the financial security of women by adding 1 million new jobs to the economy. A government that won't reopen debates settled decades ago. Canadians live in the 21st century, and conservative politicians living in the past will do so at their own peril.
The honourable member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, in December 1941, Canadians died in defense of Hong Kong and her liberty. Yesterday, 1 million people took to the streets of Hong Kong, and thousands more here in Canada voicing their concerns about their liberty because of proposed changes to Hong Kong's extradition law. These changes would allow the extradition of anyone in Hong Kong, including 300,000 Canadians living there, to mainland China, where 2 Canadians are being improperly detained and 2 others are in death row. Will the Prime Minister make a clear statement about these proposed changes, and has the government démarched with the government in Beijing or the government of Hong Kong?
The honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for Wellington Halton Hills for his question and his very sincere concern about this issue. We have indeed raised very serious concerns with the government of Hong Kong regarding these proposed changes. The Minister of Foreign Affairs issued a joint statement with the UK Foreign Secretary and said, "We are concerned about the potential effect of these proposals on the large number of Canadian citizens living in Hong Kong, on business confidence, and on Hong Kong's international reputation." In May, while I was in Hong Kong, I raised these concerns directly with the legislator. We'll continue to raise them at every opportunity possible.
The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, CBSA remains the only public safety agency in Canada with no external review process. Radio Canada has told us that a Canadian experienced a traumatic situation because of the CBSA.
This promise and table legislation to correct this. Bill C-98 is too little too late and another broken promise. Why did the minister wait until the 11th hour before tabling a bill that would allow proper scrutiny of CBSA and allow us to protect Canadians' rights?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Thank the honourable member for his question. All allegations of this nature are taken very, very seriously. The minister is aware of this file. We are committed to ensuring that border services earn and deserve the trust of Canadians. We've put $24 million into a civilian review and complaints commission to handle these kind of specific complaints. And there is legislation, and we hope that all members will work with us to get C-98 passed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Brome-Missisquoi. Mr. Speaker, the Montreal-Boston corridor currently has a highway that is 13 kilometers. Our government made an important announcement this morning, and I was there, and this project will create a direct link between Highway 35 in Quebec and 89 in the U.S., and it's excellent for tourism in my region. And in my riding and that of my colleague of Saint Jean, it will also be beneficial. Can the Minister of Infrastructure give us details about this important investment? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a key artery for tourism to the U.S. It is also beneficial for all citizens of the region and will contribute to Quebec and Canada's economic development. We're looking at $42 million to finance this project and to ensure long-term prosperity.
A member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, the Manitoba-Minnesota Hydro Transmission Project is good for Manitoba, and it's good for the environment by replacing Minnesota's coal-fired power plants. But this Prime Minister has made it perfectly clear. It's either his way or the highway. Now, former BC Premier Christy Clark got it right when she said the Prime Minister doesn't consider himself first among equals because he believes that he's the only one who has no equal. Will the Prime Minister just once humble himself, change course, and allow Manitoba to build this clean energy project?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Canadians understand that good projects to move ahead and grow our economy, we must protect our environment and respect the rights of Indigenous peoples. Our government extended the timeline. There's an outstanding issue that is caused by withdrawal of the Manitoba Hydro's proposed financial and economic benefits that they proposed to Indigenous communities. We have extended time for them to resolve those issues, and we are scheduled to be making a decision on this issue by June 14th.
Honourable Member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, Netflix announced a training program for French-Canadian artists. This is nothing, and it doesn't solve the hemorrhaging that cost 68 jobs at TVA last week. Web giants do not receive or pay tax, and they don't finance Francophone content. We aren't asking for anything special, just that the rules which apply to Quebec also apply to foreign multinationals. If it's good for us, it's good for them. When will the government force them to pay their fair share of tax? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, my colleague knows very well that we're working on this file, and we have been for quite some while, and we established an expert committee to look at this question, and we'll make recommendations. We want to act quickly to respect principles that are fundamental. We want to make sure we have a system that is the same for everyone, that everyone contributes with no loopholes. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. 68 workers lost their job at TVA, and Ottawa continues to favour web giants. Our television and films are at the heart of our identity. Through them, Quebecers recognize themselves on the screen, and we've developed our own system of stars. We have our traditions, such as Lancer Compte, Anémie et 6 hommes, et Les Beaux Malaises. We're talking about world-renowned movies that you can't find online. When will the government force web giants to pay their fair share and contribute to our culture? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we contribute to our culture through the sizable investments we've made in Radio-Canada and others for exports. I could go on, but we're talking about historical investment, and I'd like to underscore the $7.5 million investment to support creation of Quebec films. And this is recognized as by the industry in Quebec, and that's what we're doing.
There have been a series of attacks against free speech from this government recently. At the same time that it is trying to influence mainstream media with its $600 million bailout, the Liberal government wants to control what Canadians can say on social media. Will the Minister for Democratic Institutions confirm that she's even thinking about shutting down Twitter during the election if the company does not comply with her demands, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, the answer is no.
The Senator is rising on a point of order.
I hope you will find unanimous consent motion that the House agrees with the recommendation from the 27th report of the Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights, and that the name of the
Order. I would prefer